You are listening to episode 44 of the Peaceful Mind Podcast. Welcome to the Peaceful Mind Podcast, a place for creating the peace of mind you need to be the best mom you were created by God to be. If you want to bring more balance, more joy, and more peace to your motherhood, this is the place for you. I'm your host, certified life coach and Catholic mom, Danielle Tino. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, let's get started. Hi, everyone. So today we are diving into the second episode of a 5-episode series. So last week was our first one where we talked about circumstances. And today we're going to be talking about the thoughts you think. And as I mentioned, and you'll see in the title of the episode, that circumstances and then thoughts are just two parts of the 5-part components that make up the model. And the model, as I explained before, and I'll just, in case you haven't listened to the previous one, go back and mention, the model was created by the founder of the Life Coach School, Brooke Castillo, and it is the main life coaching tool that I use to help moms handle challenges and achieve all of their goals. It's used as an awareness of what's going on with you on the inside of your life. And when we do that, we can also then apply on what we want to create externally. And this model, when you put all of the components together, serves as a huge power to change if you want to be. But the model itself is just for us to gain awareness of our life, what we're creating for ourselves, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're feeling, what we're thinking about everything that's going on in our lives. And so today we're going to dive into the second part. And I have to say, this is my favorite out of all of them. Why? Because we're talking about the thoughts that are going on in your mind, how you're thinking. And thoughts are everything. They will actually be revealed to you when we put this all together, that they are the cause. They're the cause of everything you create in your life. It is why I call myself a causal coach, as I've mentioned before, because when somebody presents a struggle or challenge to me, I know that ultimately, in the end, it will always come down to a thought that they're having that's creating this challenge or struggle for them. And when you know that, it's so empowering, and it shows you how important it is to know what's going on inside your mind, inside your head. Mindset and the thoughts you think are so important. And right now it's just subconscious to most of you. And I want this episode to highlight why it might be time to give pause and to really kind of explore and get to know, what am I thinking on a daily basis? What do I believe about myself and my life and what's going on? And what am I thinking that I don't actually believe anymore and want to change? What thoughts about yourself and your life are just some things that you've bringing to your current life that really happened in your past, or that you were taught and learned from your parents or any other friends or the environment that you were in, and they've just been thought about so much that you really feel like it's a true belief and true for you, and that maybe right now it's not serving you anymore to think that way. Now, there's a lot of times we reveal some thoughts about ourselves and our lives, and we want to keep thinking that way. It feels good to think that way. It serves our life to have this kind of belief. And so those aren't the thoughts that we want to change, but the awareness of what it is actually inside your mind right now is just crucial. It's like we have to see what is going on, and then from there, we get to make an impactful decision on whether we want to keep thinking that way, or we recognize some thoughts that we're like, I no longer want to believe and think that way. And we can then change from that knowing. So let's just start with the definition of what a thought is. When I Google the definition of a thought, it says, it's an idea or opinion produced by thinking, or something that occurs suddenly in the mind. I would also like to offer that a thought you have is literally just words that come together in a sentence or a phrase. And those words that make up this phrase just enter your mind. Now, last week we talked about the circumstances of your life. So when any circumstance happens in your life, it triggers a thought in your mind. It triggers you to have a sentence or a phrase about that circumstances. And, I think that I've seen various answers, but we have about 6,000 thoughts a day. And I've even seen it up to where it talks about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So who knows, right? Like what the exact number is, but even if it's just 6,000, that is a lot. That is a lot of thoughts you are having about what's going on in your life. Just think about from the first moment you wake up until you fall asleep at night, that your mind is just constantly going, thinking thoughts that are triggered by the circumstances happening in your life. Out of the thousands of thoughts that you have a day, about 95% of that thinking is unconscious. And every time you learn something new, it creates a very weak neural pathway in your brain. And if you repeat that thought and what you've learned and thinking over and over again, and then you add a significant amount of emotion to it, which we'll get into emotions and feelings next week, it then becomes more and more unconscious and effortless. What do you believe right now, even about your own thoughts and your own thinking? Would you kind of define it as that you're a positive thinker, you're a negative thinker, you're unconscious thinker? Last week's episode, I tried to give you a little assignment to become more conscious of, more aware of what the actual circumstances are in your life. And this week, now I'd like you to start to think about what you're thinking about. And I've brought this up in episodes previously. There's an exercise that us life coaches suggest for our clients, which entail journaling, or at least taking what we're thinking from our heads and getting it out on paper. And you can just set a timer and actually just kind of free write, or what I prefer is to take a question and put that at the top of the page and then direct your brain on purpose with having it come up with some answers to show you what you are thinking. So just visualize it all being in your head. And even if you want to think about your head opening and everything pouring out, but let's get some awareness and find out what is in your mind right now. What are those beliefs? What are those just surface level thoughts that come to mind easily? And the longer you do it, we can reveal some unconscious thoughts. But the whole point is to gain awareness on what you're thinking about. So take pen to paper and maybe preface it with the question, what am I thinking right now? It's just super powerful to turn an intangible object of the thought in your mind and turn it into a tangible thing where you can actually see with another one of your senses. You can use your eyes to see what was in your head. And it's a great exercise and very enlightening and revealing. And then you can take a look at each thought individually and say, wow, is that positive? Do I like that thought? Do I want to keep thinking it? Do I want this to become a really strong belief for myself? Does it serve me well? And if the answer is yes, great. But we want to become conscious of the ones that we can recognize as being like self-critical or negative. And not that there's anything wrong with having those either. It's literally just being able to notice. Here comes that awareness word again. The model and where we're trying to go in this 5-series episode is to take each component and then see how they all work together to be your tool for your life to make the changes you want, to transform, to go after your dreams, to handle some challenges that life might throw you. So let's get a look at your mindset and the thoughts you are thinking and get them out on paper, become more aware of them. And I love to have questions direct our mind in a way where we can uncover these unconscious thoughts. Last week, we talked about the C line of the model, circumstances. And this week, we're talking about the T line of the model, thoughts. As humans, we give meaning to our circumstances through our thoughts, which, again, like I mentioned earlier, are just the sentences that constantly run through our mind. And sometimes we're aware of our thoughts, but oftentimes we aren't. So here's some examples of some thoughts that may be running through your mind. I am not good enough, or my boss doesn't appreciate my work. Now, we can't change our circumstances, but we can change our thoughts about them. So this thought, I'm not good enough, about the circumstance of yourself, it's optional. In fact, the beauty when we're talking about thoughts right now is for you to take away the notion that all of our thoughts are optional. The way we think about circumstances that happen in the world, in our life, they are all optionals. Again, we can't change our circumstances, but we can change our thoughts about them. And it's not the circumstance, but the way we think about it. That's the important part. It's not our feelings, but rather the thought that creates the feeling. It's not our behavior, but it's our thoughts and feelings that result in the actions or our behavior. And our thoughts directly create the results we experience in our lives. Therefore, the cause of our problems is not the unwanted results that we have created for ourselves, but the cause comes from the thoughts that led to our results. So your current thinking right now is what's creating your current life. So that's where we begin when we're taking a look at our thinking and placing them, the thoughts, in the T line of the model. So the first line, circumstances, and then they trigger a thought in our mind. Or another way of looking at it is a circumstance happens, and then we get to assign a meaning to that circumstance. And that meaning is our thoughts about it all. So separating what is actually a thought versus a circumstance is very important. It's like the first step. Now, I know last week when we talked about circumstances, and I'll remind you again that circumstances, the definition, it's a factual thing that happens. It is true. It's something that the world or a judge would agree on that took place. And I mentioned about separating out what is truly a fact or a circumstance, aka a circumstance, from our story about it. And when I mention the story about it, what I'm now defining for you today is that that story is just a bunch of thoughts that we're telling ourselves. The big takeaway to remember from what I just said is that circumstances, they're factual. while thoughts are subjective. They just change from person to person. And they're not true all of the time. They may feel true to us, that we're thinking them as being true, but it feels true because we have thought the thought over and over and over, so that it makes a pathway. I like to explain to my clients, it's like when you go onto a very new hiking trail, and then somebody else walks on it, and then somebody else, and then you have thousands of people, and then that nice, pretty path gets worn in, right? Like kind of worn into the earth, which is just what happens when we have a thought that we think over and over again. It feels so true, and that is because we've thought it so much. It's very well grooved, ingrained into our brain. Let's just take a few examples to show the difference between circumstances and thoughts. For example, it's 85 degrees outside is a circumstance, while it's hot outside is a thought, because some people might not agree that 85 degrees is hot. My boss said to me that report is due by 5 o'clock. Could be a circumstance, the words that your boss said to you. And you may have the thought, he is so demanding. Do you see how it's not true, or not everybody would agree, that having the report due by 5 o'clock is really demanding? It's only a choice your brain is making to think about what he said. So when it comes to your life and what's happening in it right now, let's uncover what some of your go-to thoughts are. I know I talked about doing the thought download, and then also gave you the option to ask your brain a question so it can reveal those thoughts. So here's some more questions I'd like you to ask yourself so you can get a better idea on where you are directing your mind in your life right now. So ask this: what do you believe about your life? Does your answer come to be like, I believe it's wonderful. I believe I could be doing better. Which side do you err mostly on? How about the question, what do you believe about yourself? Do you believe you're the most amazing mother? Or do you find yourself thinking, I'm not good enough? What are some of the lessons your parents taught you? This is a good one to reveal thoughts about your past, and for you to be able to see if they still serve you to think them right now. What do you believe about your dreams coming true? What do you believe about your ability to create what you want? Why do you have your current results in your life? All of these questions are going to reveal what you think, what thoughts are in your mind. And as I mentioned before, the awareness that the model brings when you are able to decipher between what is truly a circumstance and what truly is a thought that you are thinking is exactly what we're moving towards to get all the components together to complete our model, and then be able to understand what each of the components are and how it works together, that we can then use this tool on our life to gain such awareness and to make the changes that we want to see in our lives. It's transformational. Stick with me. I promise you that when we put this all together, I know I said that the last episode too, you will then have such a better understanding of your world and where you kind of fit in it and what is happening to you, what's in your control and what isn't. And then you'll be able to take this knowledge and apply it to your own life and really become empowered to create the life of your dreams. And one of the things I just love so much about the model is that I am after helping you have more peace of mind and understanding your thoughts and what is a thought and what is not is so crucial to this dream life that you are after. I'm going to conclude this episode by just reiterating again that your thoughts matter. The thoughts you think matter. Your thought life, your mindset, what your brain is choosing to think and think again and believe about the world, about your life, about yourself, about your motherhood, everything, all of it is of supreme importance. And the reason is because this is the tool that God gave us to co-create with Him this life we've been given here on earth, this human experience. And the thoughts you think is our creative power. So make sure you've listened to the episode before this, Circumstances of Your Life. And then now we have the thoughts you think. And the next few weeks, we will tackle the last 3 components of the model. Until then, I hope you have a beautiful week, becoming more conscious of the thoughts you think. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Peaceful Mind Podcast. Are you ready to take everything I teach you here and put it to work for your own life? To really learn how to have peace of mind no matter what is happening around you? If so, I'd love to have you as a client. As your coach, this is where you'll get personal and focused time on your own mind, using life coaching tools, concepts, and proven life-transforming wisdom, all through a faith-filled lens. To learn more about how we can work together, come on over to danielleteenel.com. There, you'll see how to sign up for a free coaching consult and learn how to get started. Until next time, peace be with you always.